Okay, so today we're going to finish off these First Chronicles genealogies. And hopefully begin reading in the book of Ezra, the first few chapters of Ezra. Okay, we left off in First Chronicles. Let's scoot that back and scoot this forward. We left off in First Chronicles 4, starting in verse 24. We have covered the clans of Judah, which is important because that's where the priests come from. Now we got to cover the other clans of Israel. The descendants of Simeon: Nemuel, Jamin, Jerib, Zerah, and Shaul. Shalom was Shaul's son. Milsam was his son, and Mishma was his son. The descendants of Mishma: excuse me. Hamuel his son, Zachar his son, and Shimei his son. Shimei had 16 sons and 6 daughters. But his brothers did not have many children, so their entire clan did not become as numerous as the people of Judah. Now, Simeon's territory existed entirely within the boundaries of the territory of Judah. So they were actually a southern kingdom, too. We often talk about the 10 northern tribes and the 2 southern tribes of Judah and Benjamin, but that's actually kind of an oversimplification. Because Simeon existed within the tribe of Judah, eventually somewhat disappeared in the tribe of Judah. And the Levites, of course, are scattered throughout the country and existed everywhere. So you really had 2 or 3 southern tribes. Then you had the 2.5 tribes that were east. Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh. They were east of the Euphrates River. And then you had the Levites that were scattered everywhere. So just simply saying the 10 northern tribes is kind of an oversimplification. The actual reality was more complicated than that. And one of the reasons why is that Simeon was a southern tribe that existed entirely within the territory of Judah. So they did not become as numerous as the people of Judah. They lived in Beersheba, Moladah, Hazar, Shaul, Bilhah, Ezam, Tolad, Bethuel, Hormah, Ziklag, Beth, Markaboth, Hazar, Susam, Beth Biri, and Shiraim. These were their towns until the reign of David. Their surrounding villages were Elam, Ain, Rimmon, Token, and Ashan, 5 towns, and all the villages around these towns as far as Bela. These are their settlements, and they kept a genealogical record. So to some degree, somehow or another, these tribes and families were supposed to keep their own records. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how big these records would have gotten, or who would have stored them, or where they would have stored them, but it was up to these individual tribes and families, I think, to keep their own records. Some of these records were preserved into the days of Ezra, the chronicler, so he could use them to compile his record. But he was getting this from somewhere, so some of it is actually in the rest of the Old Testament, as we've read before, but some of it was kept within these individual families and clans and tribes, and Ezra must have seen some of those somehow, or the chronicler, whoever he was. Meshobab, Jamlech, Joshua, son of Amaziah, Joel, Jehu, son of Joshabiah, the son of Sariah, the son of Asael, also Elionai, Jacobah, Jehoshahiah, Asaiah, Adiel, Jesamiel, Benaiah, and Ziza, son of Shiphi, the son of Alon, son of Jediah, son of Shimri, son of Shemaiah. The men listed above by name were leaders of their clans. Their families increased greatly, and they went out to they went out to the outskirts of Gedor, to the east of the valley, in search of pasture for their flocks. They found rich, good pasture, and the land was spacious, peaceful, and quiet. Some Hamites had lived there formerly. I don't know what branch of Hamites, but some Hamites. The men whose names were listed, those are the ones we just got done fighting our way through, came in the days of Hezekiah, king of Judah. So this was a couple hundred years even before the chronicler's time. Hang on a second. Hello? The men whose names were listed came in the days of Hezekiah, king of Judah. Now remember, this guy, this chronicler, is writing sometime in the late 400s BC. That's about 300 years already after Hezekiah. Hezekiah reigned from about 725 or so to 685. I forget his exact dates. BC. He was around 700 BC. This is about 300 years later. He fought off the Assyrians. That invasion happened in 701 BC. Syria, of course, I think his dates are like 715 to 689 or something like that. The Assyrians took the northern kingdom captive in 722 and then came to fight Judah. That happened in 701. We read about that in Kings and in Isaiah. So it's around 700 BC. They attacked the Hamites. Now I'm assuming this is after the Assyrian invasion, which was in 701 BC. Simeon lived in the territory of Judah, and Judah was under attack by Assyria for a while. So I'm assuming it could be before that, or it could be, I don't think it'd be during that. Probably after. It sounds to me like it would be after the Assyrian threat was gone for a while, but I don't know. The men whose names were listed came in the days of Hezekiah, king of Judah. They attacked the Hamites in their dwellings, and also the Meunites who were there, and completely destroyed them, as is evident to this day. Then they settled in their place because there was pasture for their flocks. And 500 of these Simeonites, led by Peliata, Neriah, Raphiah, and Uzriel, the sons of Ishi, invaded the hill country of Seir, that'd be part of Edom. They killed the remaining Amalekites who had escaped, and they have lived there to this day, so 300 or so years later. The Amalekites are the first people who attacked Israel on their way out of Egypt, way back in the days after the Exodus. And God told them to fight those Amalekites and hunt them down, basically. Saul was supposed to do that, and he almost did, but he let some of them escape, let some of them live, and that was what caused the falling out between him and God. David continued fighting the Amalekites. Apparently some of them had escaped, though. And David was 300 years even before Hezekiah. And apparently the Simeonites found the rest of them and finished them off in the days of Hezekiah. People had wrong memories back then, okay? That insult that the Amalekites had inflicted upon the Hebrews as they were coming out of Egypt, that would have happened in the year 1445 or so BC. This is now about 1,000 years later. The chronicler is writing this down. He still hasn't forgotten. The sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel. He was the firstborn, but when he defiled his father's marriage bed, because he slept with his father's concubine Bilhah, his rights of this firstborn were given to the sons of Joseph, son of Israel. That would have been having the double portion of the inheritance. That's why Joseph has two tribes instead of just one, because he got the double portion. Now, Joseph was not the firstborn. He was near the end, actually. He was the 11th of 12. But he was given the rights of the firstborn, even though he was almost as far away from being the firstborn as he could be. So Reuben could not be listed in the genealogical record in accordance with his birthright, and though Judah was the strongest of his brothers, and a ruler came from him, the rights of the firstborn belonged to Joseph. And he was given the double portion and his blessings to his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. The sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, were Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The descendants of Joel. I don't know where Joel comes from. I don't see Joel in the in that list, but I guess a guy named Joel is inserted in there somewhere. Shemaiah his son, Gog his son, Shimei his son, Micah his son, Raah his son, Baal his son, and Bera his son, whom Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, took into exile. Bera was the leader of the Reubenites. So the Reubenites were one of those tribes that were east of the Jordan River. They would technically be considered one of the 10 northern tribes, but in all functionality and all practicality, it might be better to consider them one of the eastern tribes, because they weren't particularly aligned with the north. They were not aligned with the south, with Jerusalem and Judah. And the Assyrian invasion came in waves, and the eastern tribes, the tribes east of the Jordan, were taken away before the rest of the country, the northern country. Second Kings chapter 15, verse 29. In the time of Pekah, king of Israel, Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, came and took these locations, including Gilead and Galilee, all the land of Naphtali, and abhorred the people to Assyria. So Gilead, which is the land east of the Jordan River, was some of the first places taken, as well as Naphtali, which was not east of the Jordan River, but still. So we skip from Reuben down to this guy and explain where the Reubenites went in the days of Tiglath-Pileser. That would have been 300 years before the days of the chronicler. Their relatives by clans, listed according to the genealogical records: Jael the chief, Zechariah, and Bela, son of Azaz, the son of Shema, the son of Joel. They settled in the area from Aroer to Nebo and Baal-Meon. To the east, they occupied the land up to the edge of the desert that extends to the Euphrates River, because their livestock had increased in Gilead. During Saul's reign, that would have been in the 1100s BC, or the 1000s BC. It's about 300 years, actually about 600 years, before the days of the chronicler. They waged war against the Hagrites, who were defeated at their hands. They occupied the dwellings of the Hagrites throughout the entire region east of Gilead. Now, we didn't read about that in Samuel, about the days of Saul. I guess that Saul may have had nothing to do with that, I'm not sure. The Hagrites apparently are a branch of people that came from Hagar. Abraham, the maidservant that Sarah gave to Abraham. So they would actually be Ishmaelites, I guess, unless they came from some other son of Hagar that we never read about. I don't really know. The Gadites lived next to them in Bashan as far as Salakah. So the Gadites, the tribe of Gad, was also east of the river. Joel was the chief, Shaphan the second, then Janai and Shaphat in Bashan. Their relatives by families were Michael, Meshullam, Sheba, Jorai, Jachin, Zia, and Eber, 7 in all. These were the sons of Abihail, son of Huri, the son of Jerorah, the son of Gilead, the son of Michael, the son of Jerashai, the son of Jado, the son of Buz. Ahai, son of Abdiel, the son of Guni, was head of their family. The Gadites lived in Gilead, in Bashan and its outlying villages, and all the pasture lands of Sharon as far as they extended. All these were entered in the genealogical records during the reigns of Jotham, king of Israel, and Jotham, king of Judah, and Jeroboam, king of Israel. And that would have been around the 750s BC. So that's, again, 300 plus years before the chronicler. So somehow or another, this guy, this chronicler, got his mitts on genealogical records that were already 300 plus years old at this time, and included them in his information here. The Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh had 44,760 men ready for military service, able-bodied men who could handle shield and sword, who could use a bow, and who were trained for battle. They waged war against the Hagrites, Jeter, Naphish, and Nodab. I guess those are the names of the Hagrites, I guess. They were helped in fighting them, and God handed the Hagrites and all their allies over to them, because they cried out to him during the battle. He answered their prayers, because they trusted in him. They seized the livestock of the Hagrites, 50,000 camels, 250,000 sheep, and 2,000 donkeys. They also took 100,000 people captive, and many others fell slain, because the battle was God's. And they occupied the land until the exile. We don't read about that elsewhere in the Old Testament. So that happened sometime in the days of Hezekiah, apparently. Or actually, no, the battle against the Hagrites happened in the days of Saul, but we don't read about that anywhere else. The people of the half tribe of Manasseh were numerous. So we read about the Reubenites and the Gadites, not for the Manassites. These are the people who were east of the Jordan. We're not technically in their actual allotted promised land. The area that these people got after they came up out of Egypt was not intended for the Israelites by God. Verse 32 is where they get that territory. They go up to Moses and ask for permission to settle there. At first, Moses doesn't want to let them because he's concerned that they will not go into the land and continue fighting, because they've already fought to get the land they've got now, and they want to stay there. So Moses rebukes them initially. Anyway, and Sihon and Og, king of Bashan, and Sihon, king of the Amorites. That's in Numbers 21. Anyway, that's actually not in the land that God originally had in mind for them. But they did allow them to settle there after they agreed to continue going into the actual promised land and fight the rest of the cities there so that their brothers could have their own land. They did agree to do that. They did do that. And then afterwards they were granted permission to go back to the land they had already captured east of the Jordan. And that was Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh. So the people of the half tribe of Manasseh were numerous. They settled in the land from Bashan to Baal Hermon, that is, to Senir, Mount Hermon. These are the heads of their families: Ephraim, Ishi, Eliel, Azriel, Jeremiah, Hodaviah, and Jadiel. They were brave warriors, famous men, and heads of their families. But they were unfaithful to the God of their fathers, and prostituted themselves to the gods of the people of the land, whom God had destroyed before them. So the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, that is Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, who took the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half tribe of Manasseh into exile. He took them to Halah, Habor, Hara, and the river of Gozan, where they are to this day. So the days of the chronicler, apparently those people had not come back yet. By and large, those tribes that were exiled to Assyria didn't come back, at least not whole. Some of them did. Some of them, we read about in Kings how some of the northern tribes even migrated south during the days of the split kingdom. But for the most part, they were gone, and they intermingled with the people around them, and their bloodlines were diluted to the point where they essentially just vanished.